Single parenting isn't easy. We understand. Most parents don't plan to go it alone, but you can still make the most of this journey for your children and yourself. In fact, if you and your family are on that journey, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Single Parent Advocate community and to our podcast. And here are your hosts, single parent founder Stacy Poitras, and broadcast journalist, single dad and friend, Daryl Moody.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Single Parent Advocate podcast. I'm your host, Daryl Moody, joining you again from my home studios here in Orlando, where it is a beautiful 80 degrees under crystal clear skies. A nice break from the heat we've had all summer. Stacy's there at the posh Single Parent Advocate studios there in Dallas. Special thanks to the folks at VentureX Louisville, The Realm at Castle Hills. Stacy, how's the weather there in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area today?
Balmy. It's so balmy and beautiful. It was really chill this morning and all weekend. In Dallas, we have the Great State Fair coming to a close, and everybody tried to make their mad rush to go to the State Fair. It was so pretty outside. We were all walking on top of each other. It was nuts.
Are you open the windows up and let the fresh air kind of person?
I am. God forbid, if I didn't have a screen door.
I mean, normally you can't do that here in Florida because, the humidity will ruin everything inside your house. But once fall finally does arrive, I love to open the windows, at least for the first half of the day. I had to close them up around 2:00 this afternoon, but it made for a nice morning for sure.
Yeah, no way would I ever give up my fall days. I've been walking my 2 Chihuahuas in the mornings, and one of them's got long hair. His name's Romeo. And Romeo, during the heat of the summer, he gets really, really hot, but now he's just busting a move. He's moving along, little doggies all through the walk. It's kind of fun.
It's amazing how the cooler weather makes the pets more frisky.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So before we jump into our topic for today's show, which is loneliness and friendship, we've got a really interesting survey that we want to share with you folks. Why don't you bring us up to speed with what you've been doing there in Dallas with Single Parent Advocate?
So Single Parent Advocate locally has signed up about 105, 110 families, really about, 250 children for Thanksgiving and Christmas outreach. And we're just making sure we're counting all of our lists and checking them twice, making sure that we have all of the right numbers and information together so that we can serve them this fall. We are busy putting together Home for the Holidays boxes, which are filled with family crafts and fun traditions for all of the families to be able to take home. And we're working on finalizing our locations where we'll be live locally here. On November 20th, we'll be at Music City Mall with another organization called We Are One Community, which is a group of charities where we will be giving families food, diapers. They'll be able to get flu shots, COVID shots, and come pick up one of their boxes that we have for our pre-registered families. And for new families, we'll even have a nice treat for them as well. And then we're going to be moving in from there into acquiring items for each of the kids and families to put under the tree and distributing those items on December the 18th. I'm still finalizing our location for December the 18th. And so I'll get everybody updated on that once I finalize it. But I think we're going to have a new church partner in the Plano, Frisco area who's going to come alongside of us and help make Christmas beautiful for everybody.
Awesome. And if folks want to help support Stacy's effort, you can do that by donating online, singleparentadvocate.org. You can also follow us on social media, all the places where the social media is: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all under Single Parent Advocate. So let's jump right in to our topic for this week. And this is, you sent me over the weekend a link to a really interesting survey about friendships and how many Americans are now reporting fewer friendships than in years past. And while the data is certainly interesting, it's the article here in AmericanSurveyCenter.org basically surmises that it's all another unintended consequence of the coronavirus pandemic, with so many of us kind of locked into our homes and staying in and not visiting friends and loved ones. We've kind of lost touch with friends whereas under normal circumstances, we're out going for, happy hour during the week, or maybe going out to the park together on the weekends. And we're, a lot of us have been in our own homes for the last year and a half, going on 2 years. We're losing touch with many of our friends. So there was some interesting stuff in this survey. And like I said, it all boils down to the pandemic. I'm just going to jump in here and start reading a little bit of this for you to kind of give you some of the details. It says most Americans report having faced significant personal challenges over the past 12 months. More than 1 in 5, 22% of Americans say the past 12 months have been much more difficult than usual. Nearly half, 46%, say it was somewhat more difficult. About 1 in 3, 32% Americans say they were not, the last 12 months were not particularly difficult. Women apparently report more challenges than men, probably not a shocker there. More than 1 in 4, 27% of women say in the past 12 months have been much more difficult than usual, compared to 17% of men. Middle-aged men report having a significantly easier time than other Americans, while 14% reported to have much more trouble. 43% said it wasn't any more difficult than usual. First of all, tell me where you found this survey, because it's really interesting stuff.
Well, the reason why I started having loneliness on my heart was I went to a dinner. It was like a banquet that was a fundraiser for an organization locally. Lots of fundraisers going on right now in the charity world. The fall is fundraising time. And so I had the privilege to attend and ran into a woman whose husband is a minister. And of course, she's very involved in the church. And she asked me, she said, well, I'd love to have you come visit. Do you speak? And I do speak occasionally, I have different topics that I speak about when I, and in fact, that's how we met, right? We were meeting about, Not in the Mood with Daryl Moody, and doing an interview, right?
You were a guest on my show, yes.
Yeah. So, kind of similar, Daryl, honestly, just a real organic conversation. She said, well, do you speak on loneliness? And I said, actually, I do. I do have this success acronym, and I talk about how we need to surround ourselves and know our resources, and, all these different things. And a deep dive into loneliness would certainly be something I would be privileged to talk about. And she described that there's a woman she knows who volunteers, and she comes to all the activities and stuff. But when they have a heart-to-heart, the woman says she's just so lonely, and she would want to know how to deal with this loneliness. So on the heels of that exchange is when I kind of started researching this. It's really been on my heart, and I found online this article, which I felt was more current, than maybe some of the things that I have talked about in the past. And it talked about the trends for different age groups. And I remember in my own life, whether I was going through a job change or going through a life change, those were some of the times when I really felt lonely, even though I might have been in a crowded room. I just had an awkwardness about myself, or I wasn't fully connecting with others because I was insecure or unsure of myself, And so that's why I sent it to you. It's like, hey, what do you think about this? And I was just stoked that you thought it was interesting too, because it seems like it's really something that many of us are facing right now.
Well, to your point about feeling lonely as a single parent, and I'm going to harken back to counseling sessions I've had with my therapist. When you lose your spouse, you basically lose an attachment figure, is the way she explained it to me. And obviously, there's a sense of security in having an attachment figure, in knowing that your future and your destiny is attached to one person. So there's kind of an inherent peace of mind that comes along with that. And when you lose that peace of mind, it's not hard to imagine that would lead to feelings of loneliness.
Well, and it's not like you can just replace that person, whether it's a difficult separation, or, it was friendly, or whether, God forbid, you lost your spouse to, death or disease, the transition from having a life mate to being your own life mate, it leaves us in a place of vulnerability, even in our own minds. Like, we can, like the lady said, you can be in a crowded room, you can do all the volunteering you want, you can get everywhere, you can listen to podcasts, you can do all these things, but it's kind of like being a rat in a wheel when the very core of your heart is still feeling isolated. And like for me, I think that it's boiled down to focusing on authentic, fully present exchanges with close friends, that's helped me during those times when I really pretty much probably had my walls up, because my first instinct was always, uh, you know, guard your heart, right? Guard your heart, and so when we're guarded, and a lot of people usually are when we've gone through a loss of some kind or a big life change. What are the big life changes? Whether you've moved, whether you've changed jobs, whether you've had, a family change, all of those we tend to put our guard up. And so you can be in all the activities in the whole wide world. You can have a busy schedule. And at the end of the day, you can feel kind of still alone because you haven't fully connected, really, I don't think. For me,
Well,
anyway.
you mentioned close friendships, and there's something in the survey about that. And they basically compared survey results from 30 years ago, in the year 1990, to this most recent survey. And the percentage of Americans who say they have no close friends, in 1990 it was 3% of those surveyed. Not fast forward to this most recent survey, that number is now 12%. Even one close personal friend has gone from 4% to 7%. Two, it goes from 9 to 13. Three, it goes from 11% to 17%. When you're talking about four or more personal friends, this was interesting because it actually goes up. It goes from 11% to 17%. And maybe that's, besties versus your closest personal friend. You know what I mean? Because everybody has besties these days. But that was the only number where we actually saw, well, no, not necessarily. 3 to 4, you see the same thing, 8% versus 11%. Move out to 10 or more close personal friends. In 1990, 33% of those surveyed said they had 10 or more close personal friends. You look at the numbers from this year, and that's 13%. You add into the experience that we've had with the pandemic and having fewer personal relationships. That can be a real problem for single parents, because as we talk about almost every week on this show, is how much we rely on our tribe, if you will, our people, our close friends, our circle of friends. And when you have fewer people to rely on, and that just makes the challenges of being a single parent even greater.
Right. And, one of the things I liked about the survey was I talked about how we have friend buckets. We've got our work friends, friends at the gym, friends at church, different friends in different places, right? And one of the things is, if we're isolated and we're not in as many places, it's real easy for that connection that used to be there to kind of wither away. Certainly I feel like for me, I've been very fortunate. Um, I've been through a lot of changes, and I kept thinking to get Daryl about, when I had my back surgery. That was a big surgery back at the beginning of 2019. And I was so surrounded with flowers and friends and, people coming by and all of that. But in between those moments, I was, trying to figure out, what am I going to do, in between the times that physical therapy is, or all these different, it just seemed like I was tasking myself. Okay, it was almost like I was overscheduled, even though I was supposed to be taking it easy and healing, And in those times, I had to really dig into, reading, or maybe I wanted to catch a movie or enjoy some time with myself. And maybe I had that for me was kind of a learned thing, because I suffer from FOMO bad. If I find out something's going on and I'm not there, the lonely light goes off. Boy, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm missing out. And so for me to learn in my own journey to enjoy some time with myself, and like hanging out with myself, that was a big growth thing for me, and I think about people who have been sick, or who, God forbid, have lost a loved one or a dear friend to this COVID pandemic or something else, really looking in the mirror and going, I want to be my own best friend too, kind of makes me go back to those moments when I was, disabled for a short time and not really able to go and do, people had to come to me.
But to your point, as human beings, we're wired to be social. We're social animals. Another interesting statistic here: in 1990, 75% of respondents said they have a best friend, the number one closest personal friend. Now that number is only 59%. Do you have any advice for the viewers and the listeners of what to do if you don't have that go-to person?
Well, I have some thoughts. A best friend doesn't become a best friend, in 5 minutes, right? For most of us, you choose your friends. You don't let your friends choose you, right? I've heard that said quite a bit, is like, surround yourself with happy, healthy, whole, and uplifting people who inspire you. And, it takes some time to get to know people such that they would be a best friend, But for me, I've always looked for groups of people who like to do what I like to do, like my hobbies are dancing and singing, I will go to a group thing, and then I will invite somebody to go out for coffee sometime if I want to get to know them better, or vice versa. They'll do the same for getting to know me. And I think it's just having an open heart and an open mind to investing time into developing a friendship. And I think as single parents, we don't have that luxury often, where we've got the time, especially if our children are young, to go and I'm just going to go have coffee up the street with let's say Deidre, and me and Deidre are going to be gone. And, it's like, oh, well, how am I going to cultivate that kind of friendship? And for me in my life, I had to put myself in an environment and in places where my son was welcome, where, he could go with me or he could not, because I always had him. He was never away for a weekend, So I chose to be in groups where both of us could go at any time, or I was also welcome to go individually. And that's where I started to make friends.
Well, for me, having grown up here in Central Florida, I'm lucky because, even here in Orlando, even though I'm 90 minutes from where I grew up, I've got, at least half a dozen friends that I grew up with that are here in town. As a matter of fact, when we finish the show this afternoon, I'm going to go meet up for drinks with a guy that I haven't seen since high school. I mean, I literally haven't hung out with this guy since the 90s. So, and we've been talking on Facebook, and, he emailed me. He heard me do a traffic report years ago and found my email address, and email was like, hey man, we need to get together. And, we've talked about getting together, but we just haven't done that. But, being a single parent now, and having equal shared custody with my ex-wife, half the time I'm free. So, I'm really making an effort to reach out to friends that I haven't seen in a long time. And I to your point, I kind of have that time now to cultivate those relationships. And I'm trying to make it a bigger priority for me.
Well, and that's really healthy because I remember having horrible separation anxiety early on, when Chris's dad and I were apart, and that he was there, like maybe for the first 3 or 4 months or so. And when he went to go visit his dad, it was so hard, Daryl, for me to want to like get out of the floor. I mean, it was just, I had separation anxiety so bad. And I know, there's definitely probably viewers or listeners out there that can identify with that. How do you push through that separation anxiety? And maybe that's a form of loneliness. Maybe it's something else. But trying to give yourself an olive branch and get out of the bed or out of the floor or out of wherever you are mentally and physically and step out. I had a little mini survey this weekend knowing we were going to talk about this. And I interviewed a few people just ad hoc, whether I was at Smoothie King or the gym or, wherever I was. And I asked a few people, what do you do when you feel lonely? And you know what they said? This is so interesting. They said, I go for a walk. I go for a walk, or I get up and I move, and it really helps. And there were a couple of people that said that they volunteered. They would go and maybe help a senior citizen, or, go and, volunteer to help, the puppy shelter or the kitty cat shelter, volunteer at school or church, But I still think that's a way that we cope with it. But at the end of the day, when we come back from those activities, they don't always make the loneliness go away unless we take it a step further beyond the activity and we connect, right? We lower the guard in our hearts and we say, I'm not just here to fill some space in the time to put a Band-Aid on my loneliness. I'm here. I want to do a good thing or be a part of a community, but I also want to open my heart and be open to a two-way exchange. And I think that's where if I'm being honest with myself, I found myself just, hello, how are you? The hello, how are you? Somebody's going to say, fine, how are you doing? And then we stop, right? We stop because it's just not, it doesn't feel safe yet. And somebody's got to make the first move to make a connection that goes beyond the shallows, so to speak.
Well, you pitched this idea of loneliness to me as a topic for the show a few weeks ago, and I've been kind of mulling it over because, you'll recall my first reaction to you was, well, I don't really feel lonely. I mean, obviously there are parts about my marriage that I miss, but for me, becoming, getting divorced and becoming a single parent, like I've realized my support structure in my inner circle of people that, maybe I didn't recognize they were as important as they are. Now that I find myself relying on those people, be it for emotional support or just something to do on a night off, I have realized, who's important to me, who I can rely on, who will give me the emotional support that I need. But if I were in another city halfway across the country and I didn't have the built-in network of friends and acquaintances that I have, I'd be in real trouble. I would be lonely. So I while I'm not necessarily living this myself, I can understand what you're saying.
I had this neat idea, and maybe we can get it off the ground someday. But in that survey that you've been reading to us, and I'm so glad you liked it, and we'll put the link up. But it talks about senior citizens being so much of a big part of the American population that are lonely, and of course, it even talked a lot about a lot of people not really having even one person to connect with.
Well, according to the survey, 41% of Americans.
Yeah. So I was thinking, and this is kind of like a flashback from all of my thinking that I did about, creating a single parent community for all of us. And um, what if, what if we could do like a matching where we match a senior citizen group, or, with some single moms, both kind of, or single dads too, honestly. And like, we were able to lockstep and connect beyond, delivering a meal or coming by to say hi, and make a friend on purpose, you know. I feel like I always had this idea that, there are some children out there that don't have grandparents, or their grandparents live far away. There's some senior citizens that don't get to see their grandkids or their kids, whether it's a location thing or whether it's a situation thing. And maybe, there's just a little seed that we could plant today with folks to say, hey, if you're looking for an idea, maybe that would be one.
Well, I found myself in the Villages this weekend. Ironically, you're talking about senior citizens. It's the largest retirement community in the country. And I was with my girlfriend, and I was trying to explain to her how, I grew up in a town called Ocala, which is, 90 minutes north of Orlando here. And, the two biggest economic drivers of Ocala until I moved away, in 2001, were basically horses and old people. So you had a lot of horse farms and a lot of retirement communities. And I was telling her that when I moved to Orlando in 2001, I was so sick and tired of old people. I don't want to say that I hated old people, but I was tired of old people. Now, over the course of the last 20 years,
I'm pretty sure old people doesn't sound very inclusive right now. Is there a different word we could use?
Senior citizens. But this is, I'm going to end this well. Just
all right,
stick with
Grace.
Over the last 20 years, I've kind of redeveloped my appreciation for senior citizens and their wealth of experience and knowledge and their unique perspective. And I don't find myself resenting old people the way I did back in 2000 and 2001. Of course, then I was in my early 20s, and I was, didn't know anything about anything back then either. But I have a new appreciation for senior citizens that I didn't back then, because they're more of a novelty where I live. Whereas when you live in a place like the Villages, they're everywhere.
Right. When you were kind of a fish out of water, would you say, maybe in a little bit of a way?
Oh, between you and me, Stacy, I'd move to the Villages in a heartbeat. Those old people have everything. Everything's nice. It's new. There's a million golf courses. There's every restaurant you can imagine. There's a heart attack standalone emergency room on every corner. I mean, everybody drives a golf cart. If you know anything about the Villages, it's like utopia for senior citizens.
That's awesome. I need to come and visit. I think I don't know why I had that idea. Anyway, I don't want to camp on it too much, but let's say there's a single mom or a single dad that is lonely. Do you know your neighbors? And I don't mean know your neighbors, like, do you know their names? Probably many of us don't, but what person is near you that you can invest in?
To your point, do you take the time to connect with that person?
Right, beyond just waving as you go. Or let's say there's another parent at school that, you could get to know beyond just having some activity. Because I was thinking about the difference between activity and boredom versus loneliness. Because like I said, I keep challenging myself. Okay, you can be lonely in a crowded room. Why are you lonely in a crowded room? Why are you lonely in a crowded house? Why are you lonely in a busy schedule? Like, where is that layer of difference?
Could that just be not being present in the place where you are?
Maybe it's part about being present, but also I think it has to do with reaching out and making yourself available. And maybe that's just a different way of saying presence, but being vulnerable enough to allow someone to get to know you and vice versa, being present enough such that you get to know another person. Because if we follow the trends, right? And we're like not connecting in that way. We're lonelier than we've ever been. Granted, we've had a pandemic. I don't want to discount that, but why? Why? And I think we're reaching through phone screens. We're reaching through social media. We're
I was
reaching,
just going to say social media.
all of our ways of communicating are less and less intimate, right? And so if we aren't allowing that layer of intimate friendship, I'll talk about my friend Sophia. We had each other's back for 15 years raising our kids together, and we're still friends. We met at work. She was a work friend at first that became a life friend, and we got each other's backs. We moved literally like less than 3 miles away from each other. And through the years, we had lots of experiences and challenges together, but both of us made a decision that after we got to know each other and after we, knew each other's shortcomings and things that we liked about each other, then we decided, no, we can get each other's backs. And so that's an example of, I met somebody at work, invested in getting to know her. She invested in getting to know me. And then we went through the trenches together for a while, and we built this lifelong friendship, And that's what I was trying to say earlier about, best friends, the best of friends, they bake a little bit, So maybe it's not, oh, I need to go grab a best friend, but maybe it's, I need to find someone with common interests and say, hey, be vulnerable. I've been lonely and I've got all this activity, but I'm still, just not quite across the finish line on the satisfaction and contentment factor as it relates to my friendships and my life buddies. And then go beyond that. Now, there are some people though, Daryl, they can't. I keep going back, like in my heart to, I'm sitting in a bed, I'm having to heal, and I needed my friends and folks to kind of come to me. And so what if we were to take the people who have that space in their hearts that, they need to be filled and reach people who, are lonely maybe for a different reason, right? I don't know. It was just an idea I had.
Just to bring it home for the viewers and listeners, I think what you're trying to say is that, instead of dwelling on that loneliness and thinking about what you don't have, we should all make an effort to be vulnerable with the people around us and try to establish and foster and grow those relationships with the people who we see at the car line at school or at the after school events. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. I think, and it has to be beyond what can I do or where can I show up or what party is going on next. It's more like, who can I connect with? Because to me, that's a layer deeper. It's not just, I want to be in the group, I want to go somewhere, I want to be included. It's, who can I lock arms with? Who can be, like in scuba diving, you have a buddy, right? Who's your dive buddy? And really think about it. Maybe marriages are that way too, but I think as single parents, rather than going out and just automatically trying to replace your spouse, or suffer because your spouse is gone, maybe you develop a deeper friendship with people that you are, kind of your dive buddies, and you get each other's backs.
I think that's good advice for life. I mean, don't go through the motions, actually be present in whatever you're doing and whomever you're with, and make the effort and connect with them. And, you never know, you may have a lifelong friend that you didn't even know about because you just see this person, every day in your day-to-day lives, and you go about doing your thing and they're doing their thing. But if you don't take the time to try and connect with them, you can miss out on somebody.
And I think, sometimes we go through changes in our lives where our buckets of friends change, right? Like whether we've had to move or whether we've had to make some tough decisions, maybe, you know. And when our buckets of friends change, being transparent and authentic about that, maybe not airing the dirty laundry or anything, but just, I've had a life change and, I could use a friend, I could use someone to talk to, not just I need somebody to tag along with or keep me plugged into all of the activities. No, I'm looking for a friend, somebody to talk to, because that's, I think, if I were to take that article and drill down into all of the statistics, what really struck me was getting beyond, what is it called, Daryl, when you getting beyond not condolences, the top layer, getting beyond just the greetings and going into more and being available for that.
Well, it's certainly good advice. Hopefully, folks are going to get a lot out of that.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I would love everybody's comments because it's kind of like a can that I feel like Daryl and I are opening that is kind of beneath the surface in a lot of our hearts. And, those are the times when we go through those types of topics together. And if the truth be known, there's probably situational loneliness where there's a period of time where, you're lonely for a little bit and then, eventually that ship gets righted or it resolves. But then there's some probably loneliness that's just something that stays with us for longer than maybe it should. And that's when we ask for help beyond maybe what we know how and get in touch with somebody from our church or work or, try to get some suggestions with a trusted advisor. Trusted advisors are great for working through those kinds of things. In fact, I'm super excited because we're going to meet one of my trusted advisors next week.
Who's
Diane. That? Marla Diane. She's going to come on the show. And I'm real excited about having her. A trusted advisor is something that is more of a professional relationship that helps you work through ideas, whether it's a counselor or, maybe a teacher or a coach that can really help us kind of get unstuck with topics like this, like loneliness, right? So I love the idea of developing a trusted advisor. And if you're stuck with loneliness, anybody out there, let's help each other get out of that water quick.
Well, Stacy, let's get this link up, on the various social pages so we can share it with folks, this survey, and, comment, share your thoughts. If you've got, your advice for how to connect with people or maybe where to meet friends where, as busy single parents, we find ourselves, we'd love to share that with you guys.
Yeah. And just make sure, you dial into our Facebook page, guys. If, you just need to have a word of encouragement. I've got a great group of people on Facebook. They are just present. We are 100% volunteer right now. And so it's hard for us to respond to a lot of messages, but we do our best. And, at least, join our Facebook community and count yourself not alone anymore.
Well, even if you're, to your point, like it's not even about engaging you or social or single parent advocate on the social media pages. Just share your thoughts for the other people who are looking at those posts, because you never know who could get something from it.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a whole wide world out there, but when you feel lonely, it's really, really hard to step out. And so it's a tender topic for today. And I just want to make sure that we, invite anyone and everyone to join us. It's not about getting, more likes or anything like that. It's about locking arms and making sure that no one feels alone and that, we skill up together to navigate that, because you're not alone in feeling lonely. Because when you guys look at this article, you're going to see it's a whole trend in our society. And I think if Daryl and I, we say it differently, but it's taking it beyond just hi, how are you, and a greeting, to choosing to be present and also allow someone else to be present with us. And it takes time. And so we've got a lot of changes that have gone on in our lives, and that can make it feel unsafe to kind of go there. But at some point, that's going to be the medicine we need to help not be lonely anymore.
Well, Stacy, I appreciate you for introducing this as a topic. Like I said, when you pitched it to me a few weeks ago, I was like, I don't know. I'm not really lonely, so I don't really know how to relate to this. But, we all experience some level of loneliness. So, and now we've got the survey to back it up. So, great topic, great discussion. I hope you folks got a lot out of it. Anything else?
Again, it doesn't mean that we can't talk about it again or bring in a professional to kind of talk about loneliness in a deeper level or more clinical way. But I think we just wanted to have a heart-to-heart with everyone about, this is something that a lot of people are dealing with, and we're digging in, and we hope our lives are a great, example. And we know many of you out there might have some ideas too to share. So definitely put it in the comments, and we'll dig in some more if you guys like.
All right, good stuff. That's our show for this week. We thank you as always for joining us. Remember, you can follow the Single Parent Advocate on all the social media pages. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do that. That way you're the first to know when the new episodes are posted. Stacy, with that, I guess we'll say goodbye to everybody. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you guys next week. We'll bring Marla Diane on. You guys are going to enjoy her. She's full of light and life.